Jackson. Nelson.
Here.
Cavell is here, okay. Gidgel.
Here.
Kuhn.
Here.
Loops.
Here, we have a quorum. Thank you. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from November 1st, 2022. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Hoffman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. The next item is approval of the agenda. You'll notice a slightly different agenda at this time. We grouped different items together. For example, sheriff's items are together, the court recommendations are together, public service and health and human services recommendations are together. So the plan is that we will have presenters here for the recommendation items, but we can approve the recommendations as a whole. So when we get, in just a moment, we'll move forward with that and see how it works. So knowing that, I need a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion by Commissioner Powell and support from Commissioner Hoffman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We move to our first public comment. This is for items on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment? Of course.
Oh, God.
Well, you know what to do.
Girl, I'm over it.
Hello, my name's Catherine Kennedy. I'm from Orion Township, and I'm extraordinarily dismayed by the way this board operates. I can't believe we get 1,282 pages to try to delve through, and the fact that the housing initiatives that are being promoted here are actually being done on deficit budgets is disgraceful. Tax and spend policy is rampant in Oakland County, and tax and spend more policy is even worse. We are increasing people's property taxes to a level they cannot afford and calling it affordable housing, while at the same time you're importing refugees at our expense using HUD funds that are not allowed to be used for non-citizens. And the fact that the Global Detroit webinar actually had people from HUD Chicago explain to landlords how to go to Oakland County and take advantage of all these great programs, the fact that you're expanding them, and the 2023 budget on every single proprietary fund has a budget deficit reference. And a projected overage to offset. And there's an awful lot of the operational funds that also have that same financial statement, which should not accompany any type of government budget, but we don't seem to care about if we can pay for it, if our citizens can afford what's being done, or if it even benefits the citizens of this county anymore. I'm very dismayed because of what I see as anti-American, anti-citizen, waste our money to exacerbate the inflation that's already been caused by our own government. This is all self-inflicted, guys. When Biden took office, inflation was 1.4%. I actually did a financial walk. Each bill that got passed, what the inflation rate was. And guess what? It correlates perfectly. Every time a spending plan went into effect at the federal level, inflation jumped a bit more. And they try to say it was because of Ukraine, but honestly, it was already up almost 7% before Ukraine. Now, we could have prevented Ukraine if we had any common sense at all. We already had energy independence in our country, but yet we have a president coming to our state to brag about the economy for EV when a Chinese battery plant has been invited to our state to pollute our waters. Don't you realize how toxic the battery ingredients are and how we are moving from energy independence to energy dependence on China with this so-called green energy agenda that's actually commie-red. China owns 60% of the rare earth minerals necessary to build this entire industry. That isn't going to change. We don't own those things, and the little bit we did, we just auctioned off to Talon so they can mine the only nickel plant in Michigan. It's not ours anymore. It's a joint venture of a foreign corporation. So what is going
Ms.
on?
Kennedy,
Thank you. Who do we serve?
there anyone else who would like to comment for items on the agenda?
Well, the housing is not the agenda.
Then our first public comment is closed. We move on to communications. There are two items under communications, both reports. The first report is the medical marijuana operation and oversight grant final report fiscal year 2022. The second is the intake disposition report from our animal shelter from October 2022. I have a motion by Commissioner McGilvery, support from Commissioner Gingell. Any comments or questions on communications? Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question of clarification. I know within the files of the medical marijuana operation and oversight grants final report, it states in the third paragraph on believe it's the first page, that a major deviation from the proposed implementation plan occurred because the timing for receiving grant funds was later than expected. Do we have any additional information in regards to this deviation and the implications that it has on this grant?
I know that our board rules made a difference in our different departments and when they apply for grants and when the grants are accepted. Other than that, I don't know what that is. So we have, is that Melissa?
No, it's only
No.
Leanne was just up there.
Eileen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, I also have Hannah on the call, which is very familiar with this grant. So if she can jump on the call and maybe answer that. With this specific year, the year we're just finalizing, there was a lot of issues at the state as well for us to even get the funding and the contract in place, which pushed it back even further than normal. And so I know if Hannah, I know she's trying to multitask and do a couple things because we didn't realize this was going to be on the agenda. So we're just seeing the application for this year. It just came out today. So we're hoping to get this moving a little bit faster so we won't run into the same problem that we did last year.
Excellent. Thank you, Leanne. So Leanne, within the document that we did receive, it states that the due to the adjusted timeline, it limited the capacity to fully expend the $454,786 that were awarded. What exactly does that mean? Did we lose that money?
So basically, yeah, because like I said, the state had an issue implementing our contract, right? Which pushed back the timeline for us to even hire someone, which indicated that the money that we were able to spend was much smaller than the $400K plus that was allocated to us. So it just was not utilized.
So I don't like the answer, but I can appreciate and respect it. With that being said, was there any discussion on utilizing any of that money that we literally just gave back to increase the number of lock boxes? From my understanding, we only purchased 300 lock boxes. Was there any way or discussion at that to, before we just lose that $454,000, was there any thought in purchasing more lock boxes?
You know what, if Hannah's not able to jump on, I'm gonna have to defer to her and we'll have to bring it back to you, Commissioner. I do not have that information right now and I don't wanna provide information that's not 100% correct.
I'm here, Leanne.
So, oh, you're here. Okay, Hannah, can you answer that question, please?
Sure, yeah. I think the purchasing of the lock boxes really for us was a distribution and like storage capacity. You know, there's only so much space that we have to be able to buy a certain amount and be able to distribute those effectively. We don't want to purchase over the amount that we feel like we can effectively distribute. With that being said, I think just in general, the sheer amount of money that's allocated to us every year in the short time frame is, an ambitious one to spend in the time frame. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. I'm really disappointed to hear that we essentially gave back $454,000. It's a shame, especially in times when we're continuously seeing ordinances for marijuana in dispensaries, whether it's recreation or medical, hit our communities, and it's just so important that we become more proactive in the future instead of giving back this money. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Powell?
What is process with that? Because y'all keep referencing to that because of the time frame, I guess maybe because our staffing. Is it at any point y'all would kind of let us know this type of stuff? Because that's a lot of money to be sending back, and I'm a strong believer that any money we get in grant form, we need to be trying to expense it, like at all means necessary. But this is like a blindsided to me because that's a lot of money, and this topic it's a topic in our districts, and however it probably would have helped us. I know it would have been helpful, especially for Pontiac. So I'm just trying to figure out what is process. How do y'all even get to that point to determine, oh, we're not going to fulfill this? And is there any provision that we can try to kind of somehow figure this out so we don't have to send money back? And if this is something that is going on, we need to survey all our departments to make sure we can expense what we get and we don't send nothing back.
Yeah.
So can I get an answer, please?
Yeah, Hannah, if you have anything, you could jump in here. I think, again, this year was a little bit even more, we had more challenges this year than we ever had, and that's because the state changed their process and struggled to accept any of the documentation we had as a county. I don't know if Hannah knows if any other counties had an issue. They didn't accept our contract. They had to have it created a certain way, which brought a lot of issues to, I know, the process. Not an excuse, but it was. A big issue with the state to even get the contract for this year signed. And then by the time we hired someone, there was only a small amount of time. What I can promise you going forward is we're trying to be more proactive on the process. So again, the application came out today, which we change it every year. So we can't even anticipate on what we can spend the money on because we have to wait for the application. So it comes out today. We start writing it immediately, knowing what we can spend the money on, what the allocation is. And then as soon as the grant is written, we bring it to the board to try to take, acceptance for that. That does take a little bit of time, and we have to have it submitted by January 1st. So the state doesn't give us a lot of time to even accept the application and then get it through our process and accept the funds. Generally, we're not notified until the middle to end of January if we're even receiving the funds in the application. And so then we bring it back to the committee for acceptance, and then we can hire. Again, for this year, that timeline was even extended for that. So what we can do is do a better job of trying to bring that information forward to you all so you can understand what the process is and what we need to do to get it spent.
And where does the buck stop? Is there any way our executive team, our state reps, like legislators, like is that something that they should have looked at to maybe assist us if you brought it to us for us to seek help in getting an extension or whatever the case may be it that we do have the challenges nationally. They know hiring is a issue. So I'm just trying to figure out from that perspective too. I'm not knowledgeable of that, and I don't know what other help could have helped you, but I just don't want us to be, it brought to our attention. We can't do nothing now, but if we could have prevented it or executive made a call, I don't know. I just don't know. And my colleagues, if y'all can help me, because I'm still a rookie here, I'm just trying to figure out how we don't lose no more money, and we try to help our staff also if they do come before us for us to advocate or assist them in so we don't lose no money, because we know in Oakland County we use every dime we get.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure that out. So I know my, Genja, you kind of a veteran here. I just want to see if you can explain to us a little bit too. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure things out. McGivery, our veterans. I'm just trying to ask, because this is 500 to me. Y'all know I govern a community that we lack all resources. So I'm just trying to make sure all communities in Oakland County, we benefit off every grant. And we can assist our staff also when they need some type of assistance. So veterans, can y'all help us out with the rookies so we know process?
Commissioner
May I ask something? I think we are not the only, or I'll add something. We are not the only county that experiences difficulties with this grant because of the short timeline. Particularly,
That's even better to know.
our county,
For us to advocate for it.
we have such a high dollar amount allocated towards us to even be able to spend that in such a short amount of time is very challenging. So I think any advocacy on the on the state level to be able to push, the time frame changing of how these funds are actually allocated to the local health departments would be greatly, I think, helpful, because traditionally we will have, a lot more time to look at the application and have a longer, maybe this is a multi-year, grant opportunity as opposed to less than a year to spend these dollars. So I think any advocacy, I think we've put the call out to Mouth to be able to help with that. But if we have any other channels to kind of get up to the MRA, the Marijuana Regulatory Authority, and Lara, and how these funds are allocated, we could better use these funds.
So let me say
I think
this, as
we're
commissioners, sorry to cut you off. You just gave us a list of suggestions of of ways that we can go and help you all and advocate in our leadership roles to get with our counterparts at the state to advocate for you all. So what I'm gonna ask is, how you just gave us that detailed list of things that we probably can assist. You give us the information in a timely manner. I know both commissioners on both sides of the aisles will work the state, be it it's a benefit for our community, to help expand that delay or whatever we're questioning, to make sure we don't lose them funds. So I want to say counter you and say, next time you come up with a list of suggestions, let us know ahead of time, because y'all coming up to that crunch time where, oh my God, we may have to give this back. No, we don't want to give it back. Maybe our commissioners, our leadership, our executive team can contact our state players and we can work as a team to get this stuff expanded, get things changed, talk to Laura. That is what we're here for. So we need our departments to also tell us what is going on, what y'all think, and let us go advocate for you all. Thank you.
Commissioner McGilvery, followed by Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, I just want to say that with any grant, wherever it comes from,
Yes.
you have to meet the requirements. And sometimes those are pretty stiff and hard to meet. I am a little concerned about the timing on these grants. I don't know if it's the state that holds them up and gives them to us and gives us a month to fill out the grant, get it in, whatever it is, but we need to address those concerns somehow, some way. And like Commissioner Powell said, if we can work with our state elected officials to try to give us a little bit more time on these grants so that we don't have to worry about it.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just lastly, if I'm correct in the timelines, we started receiving and applying for this grant back in 2018. And I mean this out of no disrespect. We've always had problems with this grant, always. I know there have been many of us commissioners who have been very active early on, back in 2018, back in 2019. I'm hearing the same responses we heard in 2019 on what we could do better. And then I heard the same responses again in 2020 of what we could do better. I really just hope that as we do move forward, that we can work more collaboratively together. I'm upset because I really truly think it was such a waste of the money. And I want to just get clarification. So if I'm reading this correctly, the grant amount that we received was $454,786. Is that correct?
That sounds correct, yes.
And then is it also fair to then say, out of $454,000, we only spent $15,000 and gave the rest back? Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
I really hope that in the future we do better, because this has been a problem in regards to the timeliness from the health department. We've talked about it year after year. Let's do better. How can we help? And here we are again, giving back $420,000 when we could have utilized that money to educate and do more outreach on marijuana. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
Can I just say one extra thing here? So the one thing to note on this, and I hear you, commissioners, and we will do our best to do better. This specifically has to be spent on medical marijuana. This cannot be outreach to just any, marijuana. It has to be, and even some of the billboards that we have to put up, it has to be very specific to medical marijuana. Again, not trying to use that as an excuse, but that does restrict the funds some on how we can use them. Again, not looking for an excuse. We will look to do better. I hear you, and hopefully you will see the difference next year.
Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Gensel.
I just wanted to say, if I'm hearing everything right, that on one hand we have the valid and legitimate frustration, but from what I'm hearing from Leanne and Hannah is that the health department's stuck between a rock and a hard place to an extent. So I want to appreciate you, Commissioner Powell, for lifting up that it seems like the answer is state advocacy. We have a state rep-elect here, right? So we have people that can go up to Lansing and make that advocacy so that then people like Leanne don't get chewed out by us when we hear about stuff late. But I also agree, right, more collaboration and hearing things earlier. But just want to say I hear where you're coming from, Leanne, and it sounds hard.
Thank you. Commissioner Gensel?
Yeah, maybe just a couple comments to Commissioner Powell's question. So I would say we really have two paths. One's the go to Lansing and try to make a difference. You're dealing with Laura, licensing and regulatory affairs. They're not the easiest group to get a change made in my experience. And if they do it for one, they have to do it for all, which means you'd have to rally your state reps to get that administrative entity to do something. Maybe that's possible. Maybe we utilize our consultant that we have. I believe the county executive also still pays for a consultant in Lansing. That's what they're there for. We just have to instruct them. That to me is probably more of a longer term play. The shorter term play might be for a small group of us to work closer with Leanne. And we do have options that we can control. The way that we accept grants, right now we have to approve them going for the grant, and then it comes back to us and we approve it to accept the grant. There have been occasions in the past, and I say they're exceptions, where the board can authorize the chair to approve the grant without it coming back to the board to save at least a few weeks. That may cut a little bit of time out, but the other thing that might be more impactful is having a pre-roll list of what we're going to do with the money once we get it. So once we attain the money, it's full steam ahead in spending it on billboards and all the things that are required. And I'm sure Leanne and team are doing a lot of that, but we may be able to work more collaboratively together. So that's all I would add.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you. Leanne, you mentioned that this grant pertains specifically to medical marijuana, and we know that marijuana provisioning is a moving target. A lot of municipalities are okaying recreational marijuana in their cities. Do you feel as though the state looking at grant funding for this issue and item, will it begin to include recreational marijuana, and then possibly then we can have more of a highway of spending to look at this problem and to use this grant funding? Because it seems like part of it, like as you mentioned, was the time frame, but you made mention specifically that this was only to cover medical marijuana. So that's just my question. In the future, do you see it expanding? And is our lobbyists lobbying, or, are grants going to be coming to cover recreational as well? Because lock boxes, to me, themselves is a very useful component, because we have marijuana in homes with young children in candy form and gummy form, as this mentioned, that really needs to be monitored and controlled.
Yeah, I'll ask Hannah to hop back on if she has that answer. That's why we're always waiting for that application to come out to see where the money can be spent, to see if it's changed over to, and allowed us to do additional things, maybe more broadly around recreational marijuana. I don't even know if Hannah's had a chance to look at the application, but it's my understanding it has continued to be specific to medical marijuana, but maybe that has changed.
It continues to be specific to medical marijuana, and it does limit us a bit, but we do try to make our messaging and choose our strategies as broadly as we can, meaning like having it be applicable, obviously, to both recreational and medical use. So something like a lockbox, we would target distribution to those who are, quote, medical marijuana users, and we'd be able to, formulate our messaging to be able to comply with the grant. But of course, we realize that there are people that have medical marijuana cards that use marijuana recreationally. And if we reach people that just use it recreationally, but we're doing our due diligence to stay within the parameters of the grant, that's great. Our billboards, we have general, prevention messaging, educational messaging that could target everyone, but that still kind of complies with the grant requirements.
And one additional piece to that is it's the legislation, the way it's written, it's specific for medical marijuana. So I think that would have to be rewritten for us to expand it to recreational at some point. So again, maybe that's another item, right, that, you all want to take to Lansing. But right now, the way it comes to us, it comes through that legislation that's through those medical marijuana cards based on the number that Oakland County has.
Thank you, everyone. So it sounds like the actions Commissioner Genjo reported are using our consultant, possibly a small group to work with Leanne, or to get members to travel to Lansing and present this information to our state. So think about the options, and we can email and talk to each other to see the direction. The easiest direction is to use our consultant.
Absolutely.
But that's a long-term
I know, but
process.
absolutely, that is the
All right.
easiest one.
Anything else? All right, all in favor of accepting communications, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Communications is accepted. We move on to our sheriff's office recommendations. There are 7 items under recommendations. 4 are grant acceptances. One is a staff modification for the forensics unit. Another is a donation acceptance from the state for 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And we have our undersheriff and guy up here to talk to this. I need a motion for the sheriff's office. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Hoffman. Welcome, thank you.
Good morning. Okay, so the first one is our annual, or kind of biannual law enforcement distribution program. So we get dollars from MCOLS. This year, our total amount is just under $70,000. We had our first distribution in the spring. This one is just under $36,000. It's still lower than our normal. We used to get $100,000 in training funds, or a little over $100,000. So we're still underneath that, but we're happy to accept and utilize every dollar that we get.
Thank you. Do you want to talk about the grant acceptance for the off-road vehicle?
Oh, I was gonna do each one. Do you want me to, I was just following them on the list? So we're not, okay. All right.
Follow
So
them
I
on
can
the
just,
list.
do
If
okay.
anybody has any questions, we'll ask, and at the end of the items related to the sheriff's office, we'll vote on
They're
them.
not voted separately?
Wait,
So we're ready.
We're ready.
Commissioner Bell?
yeah, because what if there's something on this packet that, if
You
there's-
have the option to pull that off,
to
Well,
vote
or
no?
talk more about it.
No, what you're saying is instead of having like 15 votes, we have like 4 votes.
Correct.
Why?
Or one.
understand how that's.
Why?
Right, because we're grouping the items together and seeing
Sure.
how that works. It's different, but let's try it.
I can understand the grouping from like making sure they get to save time or everyone gets to save time, but shouldn't we still vote on each thing?
We're going to talk about each items and vote as a whole unless you want to pull something out of there. and
To vote separately?
It's like the consent agenda, per se.
Yeah, but this isn't the time
Excuse
to
me,
do
excuse
that.
me, ma'am. Ma'am, we're in a meeting.
I hear you about, but this isn't the time to do that, right? The consent agenda
Excuse
is the
me.
thing on the full board. This is just a committee agenda.
I'm just using that for an example.
I know.
So it's more about efficiency and time. If they're mostly routine and nobody has any questions,
Does it feel like it's saving time right now?
or pull it off, if you
Yeah,
have a
thanks,
question.
Commissioner Cavell. Commissioner Ginzel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, according to Robert's rules, I believe the body can choose to vote on items as a whole versus individually. And if someone disagrees or wants to vote in the opposite manner, you can pull it out just like the consent agenda. So it is legal, it is possible, and it is permissible.
And the body didn't decide that though.
It
Madam
will
Chair?
when it comes time to vote.
You can, but
Well-
when we approve the agenda, my understanding is the chair said we categorize these, we're going to vote and deal with them as a whole.
Categorizing is not the same as saying we're gonna split the vote up. That's a different thing. Categorizing is just saying A to B, B to C, C to D.
So I would just say,
We're not categorizing, so Commissioner Cavell, we're going to move forward with this. If there's an item you'd like to pull out at the end of the 7 items, then that would be your time to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll just do a brief
Yes.
for each one, and then at the end, if you have
Yes.
any questions? Okay.
Yes.
So the next one is our, it's the 4th year for an off-road vehicle grant. What this does is fund salaries and fringes for positions to patrol the ORV park, for Parks and Rec. Transportation Improvement Association, this is our annual grant acceptance. It's $47,169. What we do, we have patrols that are focused on impaired, distracted driving and seatbelt usage. We have a donation from the Michigan Department of State. We have 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles we're going to use for training purposes. The estimated value is just over $8,600. So there's our financial responsibility is ongoing maintenance, and then once they're no longer in service or able to use them, we will dispose of them according to the state procedures. Staffing modifications in the forensic sciences unit. So this one is a little messy, but we're trying to do some cleanup. So if you recall, we normally get funding from HIDA each year that funds 2 part-time forensic lab technician positions. This year, it funded 663 hours for each position. That funding has gone away for 2023. With the parks modification resolution that we did a couple months ago, we had to delete a position to fund half of a sergeant. And then with the leftover money for that, we created a 1,000-hour forensic lab technician in planning, because in anticipation of losing this funding. But we actually have 2 people, and in Workday, the new financial system, you can't have more than one person in a position. So we need to now delete that 1,000-hour position we created and create 2 500-hour positions. So it's a lot, but basically it's just neutral. And then just one thing to note, talked to the captain over this area this morning, and he said with the gun buyback program, so we're about 2 months behind right now with our gun program. And then, so this will, because we're cutting back the hours, like I said, they each had 663, now they're going to 500 hours, so it will probably cause a further delay for the gun buyback program. So I know you guys were excited about that last week, and so there's a cause and effect. Okay, the next one is.
Gaia, what's the reasoning behind deleting those positions and positions with more hours and creating a part-time, 2 part-time positions with less hours? If we need the
So
manpower.
we do, but we were trying to keep it cost neutral. So we only had enough for 1,000 hours, so we deleted the 1,000 hours and split it into 2 500 hours, so we had a position for each person instead of deleting the people along with the grant funding.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
I'm sorry, this is the time where we can ask questions or at
Yes.
the end? Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
Is that okay? All right. So with the forensic services unit, is that also the unit that interacts with Haven when you do the START program? Or is that a different type of forensics?
Well, this is the lab, the DNA
Yeah.
lab, everything,
Yeah.
everything lab related. So,
Which includes Haven?
no, that's in a different part of our budget.
I know it's a
But
different
that-
part of the
yep.
budget, but the unit, the work that's done is also.
Haven just
there?
performs a service for us for forensic exams, so
Okay.
it's
Not
totally
related.
different. Yeah,
Okay, where
It's not-
else, where does Haven then fit in this
they don't.
at all?
Yeah,
Okay,
nope.
got it.
That's just a separate service, and basically, and that's a, I think we've talked about the board, that's a board initiative
Yeah.
that just runs through our budget. So that's
Right.
completely unrelated to this type of exam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have a grant acceptance from the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan. This is actually kind of an exciting program. We've been in collaboration with Barb Hankey from Public Services, along with the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan. And what we're doing is a community policing education series. We have technical assistants that we've been working with across the country, and this is funding just for the equipment portion of it. So we're going to purchase 2 virtual reality training simulators and a driving simulator that will be taken out to the communities.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner Gao?
This is, you said this was in collaboration with Barb and it's at the Community Foundation, so this is part of the, it's $1 million, right, that we used in the budget to then grant to the Community Foundation that then you applied for as the.
Yeah, so that was, we didn't get $1 million, but that was the initial one that was the county executive one probably 2 or 3 years ago. And then it came back around, and then we start Barb and.
Well, this
the
is
sheriff's office.
381, but
Yes.
there's also 698 before, so this is it's like a pass-through to the Community Foundation to you all.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have an amendment with the Charter Township of Lyon. They are just adding one additional patrol investigator position, which will be a school resource officer. And I think that's it.
Thank you. All right, regarding the 7 item, Commissioner Genzel?
I was just going to move to approve items A through G.
Thank you.
Support.
So, thank you.
What if I want to vote no on something? What do I do?
Well, now would be your time to, which item would you like to pull off?
G. I think there's a better way to do
Okay.
school safety than police officers with badges and guns. So I
Madam
wanna
Chair.
vote no.
Genzel, would you,
I'll amend my motion to approve items A through F.
thank
And I
you.
amend my support.
Thank you. All right. Prompt the vote, please.
I made a mistake with my vote.
Would you call on Commissioner Nelson verbally? Okay.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
I'm not trying to say no to everything. Shit.
you have 9 yeas, 9 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the first 6 items under our sheriff's office recommendation has passed. We move on to the 7th item, the amendment to the law enforcement service agreement with the Charter Township of Lyon, adding 1 patrol officer beginning January of 2023. I have a motion by Commissioner Genzel, support from Commissioner Powell. Are there any other comments regarding this item? All right, prompt the vote, please.
You have 8 yeas and 1 nay.
All right, 8 yeas, 1 nay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. That was almost painless.
It'll be easier now that we know what to do.
We move on to our circuit court recommendations. There are 4 items under this area, and we have Ms. Bujak.
I'm Suzanne Hollier for Friend of the
Suzanne.
Court, and Chris Bujak is
Oh.
appearing on the screen behind me.
Thank you. So 4 items regarding juvenile drug court program, the mental health court program, the adult treatment court program, and the fiscal year 2023 access and visitation grant. I have a motion by Commissioner McGilvery, support from Commissioner Nelson. And so what can you tell us about these items?
Chris can speak to the first three.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Bujak. I am the new court business manager. And with me today, appearing virtually, are Melissa Reed, the chief of casework, Nate Gilling, the supervisor of the casework supervisor in charge of our treatment courts, and outgoing court business manager, John Cooper, here for moral support as I appear for you here in front of you the first time.
Thank you.
Our juvenile drug court grant, juvenile drug court has been here for 20 years. I'm sure Nate could tell you the exact date, but as long as I've been here, the juvenile drug court and the adult treatment court have been in operation. Our juvenile drug court is for $40,000, the grant from the State Court Administrative Office. It funds one full-time position. Judge Cunningham is the juvenile drug court judge, and it's family focused to help nonviolent offenders with substance abuse issues avoid incarceration and get back on the right track to avoid recidivism. Our juvenile mental health court will be new this year. It's a $30,000 grant, substantially less than what we had hoped to get, but we're really excited to get this off the ground. Judge Julie McDonald will be the judge overseeing this docket. And the program is going to partner with Oakland County Health Network to provide mental health services, treatment, and testing for kids that are identified as in need of services. Our adult treatment court is a $279,000 grant. This grant funds one full-time position, partially funds two other full-time positions. It provides therapy, incentives, and testing. And the program is for nonviolent criminal adult defendants, gives them alternative rehabilitative services to avoid incarceration. Judges McMillan, Polis, and Gant are all overseeing dockets. And the reason we have 3 now is because we've actually more than doubled the participants in this program in the last few years. We're doing that with the same funding. And so we do hope to ask the SCAO again in the second quarter for additional funding to make sure we can continue to provide services.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding these items? All right, we move on to the front of the court grant acceptance from the State Court Administrative Office. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Cabell?
I had a question about the juvenile mental health court, and then also just friend of the court in general. I had a kind of
I'll take the front of the court question when we get to me.
Okay. So the juvenile mental health court, this is in addition to the 2-year-old mental health treatment court, correct?
We have a combat mental health treatment court for our combat veterans, but the juvenile mental health court is new.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it's an addition. It's not replacing anything.
No, this does not replace anything. This is, we don't have a just mental health court docket for adult offenders right now.
Right, but what I'm saying this is an
this
additional
does not replace
thing.
anything.
Right, that's all. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then for friend of the court, I had talked to y'all about the thing that they're doing in Kent County. How's that going? Do you want to also share about it?
Sure, I'll explain that a little bit.
Yeah.
First, let me share about the grant. This is the 26th year of this grant. It comes from the State Court Administrative Office, but it's federal money, and it's designed to provide some type of parenting time services. Although the feds are way behind us in terms of language, we've said parenting time in Michigan since the 90s, but they still call it visitation. So that's why it's called the Access and Visitation Grant. It provides pass-through funding, which we contract with Impact Consulting to provide supervised parenting time services to really our poorest residents who otherwise wouldn't see their children at all. They this year, the state court, normally I come back to you in early summer because there's counties that haven't used all their money. And we always run out of grant funding, you know, sometime in the summer before the fiscal year ends. And then our provider just ends up providing these services for free because the consequence to families would be so devastating if they just stopped providing services. So this year they gave us $28,000 right from the get-go. So you hopefully won't have to see me this year in the summer, and instead we'll be able to continue this money throughout the whole fiscal year. So
Thank you.
that's the grant. Commissioner Cavell was asking about a program that Kent County does that we're well underway. It's we're having to do we've had to make a request with IT to put the same kind of questionnaire on our system. But so, for better or worse, the friend of the court is required to report people who have more than 2 months delinquent support to credit reporting agencies. It's a federal law. There's very little discretion in it, and it happens automatically and really without any intervention by any friend of the court staff person. In that law, there's a provision that people who will benefit from having their report submitted to credit reporting agencies should be allowed to come to front of the court and have that done. No one has ever done that in Oakland County, come and said, hey, I'm pretty current, but will you report me anyways, front of the court? Kent County, with an agency in their community, set up a process where they could do that. We're able to do it with our system. We've just never really advertised the fact. So Commissioner Cavell heard about this. I got in touch with my partner in Kent County and figured out what they were doing. And they provided me, they have something online that, I think they have a form. We're setting something up online on our website so that if somebody does want to make a request to have their report, their payments to front of the court reported, they'll be able to do that. We're going to add, though, a caveat, because in looking into it, it could have unintended consequences of changing a person's debt-to-income ratio, and it could actually harm their ability to borrow, even though it might improve their score because they're making consistent payments. It can also, I've learned, impact their debt-to-income ratio. So if they want to go buy a house, their lender would then know, oh, you're paying child support, so you don't have as much income available to you. So we're going to make some modifications to it. But yes, that process is well underway, and IT, has, with our Laserfish system, we have a way to submit forms electronically, and we've had a request in for that since I spoke to you. So,
Thanks.
yeah, and we're updating our handbook to include that as well.
Cool. So a great way to increase people's credit scores by just paying child support on time. And I appreciate you being so cool to work with. You're
Thank
great.
you. I'm always, it was an interesting idea to me because I have known that was in the law, but never, and I know we can do it in our system, but it had never come on my radar that really we could advertise that. So, good idea. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your passion, so yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, 4 items. Is there any item someone would like to have pulled off? All right, then Commissioner Ginzel.
Yeah, I'll just move to approve items A through D under Circuit Court recommendations.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner McGillivray. Prompt to vote, please.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays. 9 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next item is a district court recommendation. Staffing modification, magistrate hour allocation and position creation from the 52nd First District Court. I have a motion by Commissioner Cavell, support from Commissioner Hoffman. And we have, is Alexander Black here? Okay, currently the 52nd First District Court has 2,054 hours broken up into 5 part-time magistrate positions. It's becoming difficult to cover all 7 days utilizing 5 magistrates at the 52nd First District Court, so an additional magistrate position is needed. They would like to reallocate the hours assigned to the current 5 positions to allow for an additional 6th position to be created. Commissioner
Oh, we already
Powell?
supported it, right?
Yes.
Okay, no.
Commissioner McGilvery?
Yeah, I have a question. And I don't know if there's anyone here to answer it, but most of the district courts that are under their own control have one magistrate, and that one magistrate will handle arraignments, those kinds of things. Why does one district court, that being in Novi, need 6 magistrates? I don't understand that, and I need an answer before I can vote yes on this.
Good question. Is there anyone from the court here? Commissioner Hoffman, do you have a question
Well,
or comment?
I guess, Gary, I can only speculate that these are all part-time positions, 500 hours each, so they're not full-time. They actually have 3 full-time judges there, so I suggest that maybe their caseload is a lot higher than, say, Waterford's 51st District Court, who has 1 magistrate, and maybe they have 2, I'm not sure, but I know for sure they have 1. So maybe that's what it is, but again, I don't know for sure. But it is a large court.
Yeah, Ms. Black is logging in now, so she may have some answers for you.
Hope she agrees with me.
I agree with you both. I think we're on point.
Hi. Sorry, this is not my agenda item, but I have learned that Alex has a family emergency, and that is probably why she is not here today. So I just wanted to let you know that it was not by choice or forgetfulness. I'm sure that there's not someone here from the district court.
Thank you.
She said she's logging in, I just took her.
Well, we'll wait a moment and see if that's possible to have your
Can we,
question answered.
I was gonna say, can we move on till she get on there?
Would you like me to try and have someone from the district court jump on this meeting?
Actually, our staff called her and she said she was gonna be on, so we just waiting to see.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, would you like to move to emergency management while we wait for her to log on?
Yeah.
Okay. Under emergency management, there are 2 recommendations, both grant acceptances, one from the state police and one from Department of Homeland Security. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Powell, and is you're right here, thank you. Mr. Seeley here to talk about these 2 items.
Oh, thank you, Commissioners. So the first grant is the Emergency Management Program grant. That is the grant that pays a portion of my salary. It pays actually 50% currently of my salary, and that can fluctuate depending on how many emergency managers are in the state. It's one pool of money that's divided based on the salaries of the individual emergency managers across the state. So this year, it will be $55,212 that will go toward my salary, and that's the emergency management grant. The other grant on here today is the Homeland Security grant. The Homeland Security grant is the UASI region, Urban Area Strategic Initiative region. That's 5 counties in the city of Detroit that all share in that grant. It is allocated to the different communities by the fiduciary, which is currently Macomb County. They have a formula that decides what county gets what portion of that money. Our portion of that money for this year includes the UASI grant, which is in the amount of $534,978. Also the SHSGP, which is another Homeland Security grant from the federal government, that amount is $37,510. And it also includes 4 positions, 2 solution area planners that work in my office that help to allocate this money. The money is allocated, all the money I just mentioned is allocated through the Grant Allocation Committee, which is a group of people from in the community, law enforcement and fire and other special teams that decide on how that money is spent within the county to benefit the region. And then 2 positions that work for the oh God, I'm gonna forget the name of it, I'm sorry. They're intelligence analysts that work for the county, for the UASC region. They all work in Southfield as a part of an intelligence information gathering. They are paid, or they are employees of the sheriff's office, but they're paid through this grant through emergency management. Barring any questions, those are the two.
Thank you. Questions or comments regarding these grant items? All right, thank you for being here in person.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you directly across the looking up. All right, prompt the vote, please.
She on there too, when we get done.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, we're going to return to the district court recommendation regarding the magistrate hour allocation and position creation. And Alex, thank you for being with us. So there were some questions and comments regarding the need for so many part-time positions. Is there something you can tell us about this item?
Yes, I apologize. I completely forgot. I completely forgot.
Glad you're here now.
Yeah, so the reason we needed this position is because all of our magistrates work other jobs. They're attorneys as well. And when they're working their other jobs, they can't be with us. So obviously we split up these 40 hours that we have between all of these people. We have people that we hired a long time ago, 31 years ago, that have sort of weaned down in how much time they want to spend being a magistrate. So, we're preparing for different things, trying to be proactive. The other thing is we really need more that are willing to do the weekend arraignments. So this gentleman was not only willing to do the weekend arraignments, but when I presented in front of the board, he's such an excellent candidate. We want him to cover some of the weekly hours that we have. So to start with, he would probably only be on the schedule for one afternoon per week, and then he would be able to substitute when they do have other things come up. So it doesn't change how much money we're going to spend or any of those things. It's just sort of a preparation for when people have other things in their life that maybe this part-time job isn't for them anymore. And also to make sure that we have proper coverage during the weekends.
Thank you. I'll go right down the road. Commissioner Powell, Commissioner McGilvery, and Commissioner Cavell.
So I just want to share, Commissioner Markham shared with me by text. She said that the 52-1 services the jail 24/7, and they do it for other courts. So Alex, I don't know what that really, I get what she's trying to say, but if you wanted to elaborate on explaining that a little bit more to us for our understanding, that'd be great. But I just wanted to share what Markham sent to me by text to my colleagues.
Thank you.
Yes, so we service the 44th, 45th, 48th, 50th, 51st district courts, and then of course all the 52nds. We service more than 40 police departments on the weekend, and so that is every single weekend, every single holiday, to make sure that nobody's staying in jail, unnecessarily, and making sure that they're getting arraigned and having their due process protected. So obviously, asking a magistrate, a person, to work every single weekend, every single holiday is not, nobody's going to take that job. And so, we've got a number of people that are willing to split that up. And over time, it's become more difficult for two of my magistrates to cover. They have children and other things in their life that they want to do. And so, yeah, we're covering for all of those other, I'm sorry, I can't avoid the dinging here. All of those things, all of those other courts and police departments are covered, and that's how we take care of them, through these magistrates and the staff that I have. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner McGilvery?
Yeah, Alex, I guess I need to understand better. Why is it that a Royal Oak or a Hazel Park District Court has one part-time magistrate, and Novi has to have 6.
The 6 cover 40 hours. So we have 40-hour-a-week magistrates at all of our 52nd district courts. Because originally, when we were set up, that's what the state court administrator's office said we needed to make sure that we cover not only our caseload with the judges, but that the arraignments, the civil docket could be handled. And so we don't really have, if Royal Oak only has a part-time magistrate and chooses to only have somebody there 20 hours a week, then that means the judges are handling anything else when the magistrate's not there. At our place, because caseloads have continued to be something that our judges can manage themselves, but only within that 40 hours, we've needed a 40-hour-a-week magistrate to make sure that these other things can get taken care of, like I said, our civil dockets, landlord-tenant, now that we've added on an extra date that the state court administrator's office added on during COVID, so you have extra court dates for that. So to answer your question, I mean, I'm assuming that Royal Oak either has determined that the caseloads aren't so high that they need to have a full-time magistrate, but even if they had a full-time magistrate, our 6 people equals that full-time. So it's not like we have 6 part-timers. We have somebody working 4 hours a week, somebody working 20 hours a week, somebody working 12. So it's all equaling 40 hours. So we would be in comparison to a larger district court where we do have a higher caseload, larger district court than Royal Oak. And so you have more walk-ins on arraignments and things that need to be taken care of in the immediate. We don't feel at 52nd that we should be turning people away with warrants when they want to come in and take care of them. They should be able to take care of them. And I'm not saying that Royal Oak's not doing that. I'm saying that maybe because their caseload is different than ours and they are a smaller court, they don't feel that they need 40 hours of a magistrate's services. I'm not familiar with how many hours they do utilize there, but that is exactly why they need our services on the weekends, because they don't have magistrates to cover for them on the weekends. So we cover for Royal Oak and the other courts that I had mentioned to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Cavell?
Oh, well, I guess if Gwen's still listening, I just want to say I thought I was the only one you texted, because I got that message too, Angie. That's all. Angie asked my question. She was going to speak for Gwen.
Any other comments? All right, prompt the vote, please.
That's her wheelhouse. She's trying to protect her by court. All right.
Yeah, she's covering herself.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you, and thank you, Alex. I want to give Alex some credit. She really didn't forget. It is actually none of our business regarding the family emergency, but listen to the sound. So thank you for going above and beyond.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, our next item is from Health and... Our next item is from our Health and Human Service recommendations, or from the...
No, public service.
Public service.
Public service
Oh,
recommendation.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Public service recommendations. We have 2 items. First, from Michigan Department of Corrections regarding community corrections funds. And the second with the Lapeer County to provide medical examiner services. Who would like to make a motion? I have a motion by Commissioner Powell, support from Commissioner Cavell. And we have here Eric and Cass. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
What would you like to tell us about these items?
Yes, hi, I'm Eric Schmidt, that's Cass, but I'm the manager with Oakland County Community Corrections, and before you is the grant acceptance from the Michigan Department of Corrections. This is a continuation budget. We've received this grant for many years, since the mid-90s. As you see, it's for a little over $2 million. It will continue the funding of 13 special revenue positions full-time, as well as 1 part-time non-eligible, and partial funding of 2 positions. We did change our services at the Sheriff Department, as you see in the resolution, where we went from 3 positions of inmate case manager or case workers down to 2. That was due to low utilization, and we were able to make that transition with a retirement. So no one, so to speak, lost their job. So we were able to coordinate that over the summer. So heading into the FY23 budget, we just have 2 caseworkers there in the sheriff department. It's a continuation budget, so the difference was made up in additional programming, where we're enhancing a trauma program and a mentoring program that we're implementing this year. So I would ask for your acceptance of the grant award.
Thank you.
Kaz Monarch with the administrator at the medical examiner's office. We've been in communications with Lapeer County to provide medical examiner services. They do not have a medical examiner. They're currently contracting with another company. They've reached out to us. We've been in communications. We would provide the services of the medical examiner's office. They would continue providing the medical examiner investigations, so we would not be responding to scenes in Lapeer, but we would end up taking all the medical examiner responsibilities for Lapeer County.
So bringing this forward, I would assume that you're comfortable with taking on the additional.
Yes,
work and
based
have
upon their
staff for
annual
them.
reports and the numbers that they provided to us, we anticipate about 35 to 40 autopsies a year is all we would be providing for them. And that's based upon 2 years of annual reports and just communications with them. So taking on that won't hurt us at all. We'll still be able to maintain our accreditation.
Thank you. Thank
Great answer. Question.
Other questions or comments regarding these 2 items? Commissioner Cavell?
Yeah, hi, Cass.
Hi.
I don't know if you know this answer because it's based on the budget, but I see what looks to be like a steep drop in expected cost next year in 2024 for the budget.
For
That
this?
Yeah, that it'll be $56,000 for autopsies in fiscal year '23, and then less than $20,000 in '24. So, and it's kind of like that across the board if I'm doing my fractions right. 12 to 4, 56 to 18. Just wondering if you can explain
No,
if
that I
Lapeer's
can't.
expecting to have
I mean,
longer
based-
life.
Based upon the
or
numbers that
something?
we calculate for next year, we anticipate roughly about $100,000 of revenue from Lapeer.
Mhm.
And if those numbers stay consistent as they have, we would anticipate those numbers staying consistently at that. So I'm not
Okay.
sure why it's saying that.
Okay.
No drop in revenue, it would
All
be an
right.
increase.
I'll ask in finance. Thank you.
That's interesting.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kinzel?
Yeah, Kes, so just a quick question from my standpoint. So this contract with Lapeer County, what you're saying is it's going to generate revenue, but it's not going to require any incremental expense. There's no variable or minimal variable expense.
Just a minimal expense of some supplies, but nothing based upon what we calculated and then just the time, but we're already there. So minimal, very minimal expense in supplies. They're reimbursing us for the cremation permits. So everything's reimbursed through normally the funeral home, so no, it
Yeah.
would be very minimal.
I was looking at all the expenses in Exhibit 1. So to me, this is a good arrangement where we're going to help our neighboring county, we're going to generate revenue, and it's minimal to no expense to obtain the revenue. And if the revenue goes away, we haven't added any expense, so it's essentially net neutral.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is this is a contract for 2023 and 2024, and the total is 100,000.
So it would be for 1 year, we anticipate for the first year of the contract, by the time we get everything passed through, it'd be probably January before we would actually start. And so January to January, about $100,000 is what we're anticipating. It could be more, obviously, we don't, and then we don't know.
Okay.
So I think going back to your question,
Yeah.
Commissioner, I think what happened was they're saying, okay, by the end of the fiscal year,
Plan
it'll be
use is
here, and then
different.
they didn't, so
Yep.
we don't want to be partial
Right.
fiscal, so.
Right,
Understood.
thank you.
Yep. Figured it out.
Any other comments? All right, prompt the vote, please.
Since it's January to January. Ooh, Jesus, health and human services, got a lot.
Nelson?
Sorry.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All right, our last item through Health and Human Services are 4 items from the Health Department, 4 items from the Housing Department, and 2 additional items. I'm sorry, 6 items from the Health Department, 4 items from the Housing Department. And I have Shane here. I have a motion by Commissioner Cavell, support from Commissioner Howell. And Shane, well, first we're having the Health Department items, so Leanne Stafford can address that. So under the Health Department, we have grant amendments to the local health department comprehensive agreement, the emergency threat agreement, the substance use disorder prevention service, our fitness program, a grant acceptance from Oakland Schools for the home visitation program, and the Oakland Produce prescription program. All right, Leanne, what would you like to?
Yeah, so the first 2 items are grant amendments. A lot of times this will happen, especially with MDHHS, where they'll give us initial allocation and then maybe shuffle money around. So the very first item on the agenda is our comprehensive agreement. So that's really our large scale agreement that we get through MDHHS that really funds most of our mandated programs. And so they're moving money around a little bit. So they're giving us some additional money for hepatitis C treatment and getting out in the community. We're also getting additional money for WIC, which is great, really to get those benefits there. And then also we're looking to, they increased our money for an infant vitality project, which is a really cool project that we're working on that really looks at the positive impacts for infant mortality and how we can implement those. So that is just really, increasing and sometimes decreasing in those programs for the comprehensive agreement. The second one is emerging threats, which is where our COVID money, that's what you're seeing a dramatic decrease in. So they took over a little over $4 million, actually $4.5 million specific to COVID immunizations. And so MDHHS is reallocating that money to other items. And so right now we're going from $10,800,000 to $6,329,000. And that's really focused on staffing to provide immunizations out in the community. When we're doing, there's variants, obviously we're giving vaccines internally and externally at places that request. The next one is a substance use disorder grant. And I also have staff here that are familiar with the programs that we're about to talk about. So if you have specific programmatic questions, they're going to jump on for that. This grant here is funding that is provided by Oakland Community Health Network that really focuses on prevention-based, evidence-based programs in the schools. And so they actually contract with us. There is a match that we provide of about $20,000, just under $20,000, where we have 2 full-time public health educators. They're in the schools and also in the community doing education around substance use disorders, prevention messaging around vaping and tobacco use in the schools and the middle schools. So they really do a lot of that function out in the community. This is a 1-year contract. And again, these staff are already staffed here at the county and, they're used for multiple grants.
Can I interrupt?
Thank
with a
you.
question?
Leanne, what schools are you presently in?
Currently, I don't know if she can help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so currently we are slated to start in Avondale schools in January and Madison Heights, actually at the high school level for one program in March. We're also in planning talks with schools in Rochester Hills, and I believe one request just came through for Oak Park. We've been getting a lot of requests lately. We're also in communication through in collaboration with Oakland Schools, we work very closely with their school health consultant, Christina Harvey, to implement Michigan Model for Health. And we've been in consistent communication with Pontiac schools. Those are the schools that we're currently working with right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabell?
Yeah, I had a question about item 13B, Leanne, if you don't mind going back up to that one. So if the emerging threats budget is decreasing by $4.5 million, that will affect some people's jobs, or no? Please help.
No, a lot of the immunization funding here is we use a third-party contractor, right, to do a lot of the vaccination and immunizations. So we'll still be providing that. It's just we'll be bringing a lot of it in-house into our existing staff, and then using 1 or 2 staff to help out in the community. So we use Intech for contracting staff when we're having big clinics. If our staff aren't available, so and if they're fully staffed or we have all appointments in the clinic, it's kind of hard to plan a clinic outside because we don't have staffing. So we use Intech nurses.
Okay, thank you.
That's where the deduction is really coming at.
That's why she moved her commission.
Thank you. On to the Michigan Fitness Foundation SNAP Ed program addressing physical activity supports for Pontiac, people in Pontiac.
Yeah, this is our annual program. So this is something we bring back every year. It's kind of a continuation, but it's actually considered a new. This is something we've been doing in evidence-based intervention in Pontiac since 2009. And so this year they're giving us $59,000. We do use an existing employee that's split between multiple grants to help deliver this program. And so again, we really focus on curriculum, talking about community gardens and healthy eating and physical activities, and really focused in the Pontiac community.
Thank you. Oakland Schools Home Visitation Program.
Yes. So this grant acceptance is for a full-time nurse to provide NFP in our southern areas of the county. Here we really focus on, I'm going to try to find the CBTs that this specific grant is focused on. This is the southern areas because we have another grant that really focuses on Pontiac and northern areas.
Hazel Park, Madison Heights, Oak Park, and Southville.
That's correct. So this grant does not pay for a full nurse, so we actually have another grant that splits those salaries so that we can have a full-time staff person that handles this region in this area.
Thank you. The Produce Prescription Program.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a continuation, even though it's new. So this is a 3-year grant. We do have health educators that go and basically what ends up happening is they receive a curriculum on healthy eating and physical fitness, and then they're given a voucher to be used for healthy food at a farmer's market or grocery stores in Pontiac. And there's also some grocery stores in the southeast part of the county that participate in this. We do have sub-awards with both Oakland University and Honor Community Health, so there are partners in this. This has been a great program that we've had, I think, for 2 years now, but this is actually kind of a continuation and a 3-year grant.
Thank you. How does somebody sign up to attend the curriculum or receive the information?
Yeah, so this is actually a referral process, and it generally is healthcare providers or somebody that's part of SNAP that is actually referred to this program, and then they're connected with a health educator that kind of walks them through the program.
Thank you. All right, any comments or questions regarding the Health Division items? All right, thank you, Liam. Don't go away yet. We move on to our 4 housing items. The first 3 are grant acceptances regarding the Housing Counseling Program, the 2022 Annual Action Plan, And the home investment program, and the last item is regarding rental assistance, and we have Shane here to talk about these items. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks for having me. Again, as the chairperson said, the first one is the Comprehensive Housing Counseling Grant for fiscal year 2022. This funding partially helps support our housing counseling services staff. It's similar to past funding years that we received, and we've received this funding multiple years in a row. The next one is our program year 2022 annual regular CDBG home and emergency services grant funding. As a reminder, this funding helps support our current programs we have going on, our home improvement program, our housing counseling services, our rental development gap financing program, as well as shelter operations and rapid rehousing and homeless prevention services that we assist nonprofits with. The third item is technically, it's not an acceptance, it's an approval for us to submit our home ARP allocation plan to HUD. If you remember, previously I came to you to accept 5% of the home ARP funding previously for administrative costs associated with getting this allocation plan together. And again, this is just a approval to submit that particular plan to HUD for their review and approval. Official acceptance, if HUD approves our plan, would come back through the Board of Commissioners at that time to officially accept the additional funds. As a reminder, the Home ARP program is unique one-time funding coming into Oakland County as a program jurisdiction coordinator. And this is unique in that no other HUD funding is available to help develop non-congregate shelter space in Oakland County, which is very limited. And I come from a public health background. I'm all about prevention. And, you know, as much as I would love to have a world where we can prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place and experiencing that, that's not the reality of the world right now. And so this one-time unique funding is a great opportunity to help develop non-congregate shelter space for when people do experience homelessness, that they can do that with as much dignity as possible and as healthy as possible, having their own non-congregate shelter units when they're going through that experience.
Do we have any non-congregate shelter units at this time?
It's limited in the county and specialized. For example, Haven has some non-congregate shelter units for households fleeing domestic violence and sexual assault situations, but it's just for that population. As well as Common Ground has some non-congregate shelter space for youth experiencing homelessness, but that is also very limited and specialized as well. The general rollout of the plan would be when everything is approved by HUD and when it comes back through acceptance of those funds through the Board of Commissioners, we would then go out for an RFP to shelter operators and developers for their proposal plans. As a reminder, this funding would get paired up and coordinated with some of the SLRF ARPA funding that was put forth to also help with non-congregate shelter development. And given that there's basically not much at all in the county, is that this will be a significant boost to those in Oakland County who end up experiencing homelessness. And then the final item is a miscellaneous resolution to approve a subrecipient agreement with Alliance for Housing for them to receive Community Development Block Grant CV funding to administer a rental assistance program on the behalf of Oakland County. As a reminder, this is money that has already been accepted by the county and approved by HUD for this purpose. This is simply a miscellaneous resolution to allow us to have Alliance for Housing administer up to $1.5 million of that funding for us to help renters who can't be assisted anymore from the CERA program, which recently ended this past October. And this is something that's good for us in that we can continue to focus on administration of our current funding that we're receiving, as well as the additional ARPA funding projects that we're working to get stood up. Alliance for Housing is unique in that they're used to this role and working with continuum of care providers such as Community Housing Network and Lighthouse. And they are also officially the head of the continuum of care that helps to coordinate those nonprofit agencies. And so with that, I'll pause and answer any questions on my 4 items.
Commissioner Cavell?
I just wanted to lift up some of the stuff that Shane has put in his documents, if you got a chance to look at them. First, like, this is great work, and I appreciate what you're doing, Shane, because just to say, I'm not good at the math, so how many shelter beds are there currently in Oakland County-ish? There's a table in, right, it's like 172 or something?
That sounds
right.
Accurate, and most of those are congregate dormitory style shelter beds.
Right, if you've ever been to Hope Warming Shelter, right, it's like 3-level bunk beds. And there are, according to like the conservative estimates, 1,200 people that are literally homeless, so sleeping on the street. So there's 172-ish congregate beds where you're just sleeping in a bed with a room full of other people snoring and farting and breathing. And there's 1,200 people sleeping on the streets. Second, like Shane mentioned, the CERA program ended September 30th. That was federal money that came straight to helping housing organizations keep people from getting evicted. So there were 17,000 people on the eviction prevention list that program helped that ended. And during the height of the Great Recession, there were, and some of y'all remember, there were 8,000 to 10,000 evictions a year during the Great Recession. This had 17,000 people on it. And it went from having $100 million to zero, just October 1st. So in 1 month, there have been 953 evictions in just Southfield, Oak Park, and Pontiac. So we're just about to see the crest of this wave. We have not even seen how big a deal this is. So whatever you're doing, it's great. And just trying to lift up to everybody that this is a huge thing.
Commissioner Hoffman, followed by Commissioner Genzel.
I have a question, and Commissioner Powell and I have talked about this before. There's some people who live on the street. They don't want help. I mean, I've talked to them, I think you have, and they just refuse it. I don't know how you help those people. I mean, it's kind of a question and a comment, I guess.
I do agree that can be a challenging situation, and I won't deny that there are some individuals hesitant to being assisted with that particular help. What I can say, though, is that the current shelter bed need for those wanting assistance and for wanting that support is not sufficient for the majority of people who do want to receive some kind of transitional help and support like that.
I do agree with that.
Commissioner Genzel.
Thank you. So just a couple questions. On the home ARP one, I mean, we've all seen what's going on in Seattle and San Francisco. I mean, nobody wants that here. But are there stipulations around the ability to utilize the program? Do you have to be a U.S. citizen? Do you have to validate that? Do you have to, is there a timeline in which you can, get a hand up and not a hand out forever? I don't know. I was trying to read the documents, so I guess I'm asking the questions.
Those are good questions. HUD is, to be honest, is still developing their various guidelines around the full application of this program. For example, they only recently established that if you utilize the funds for this purpose, that If you go non-congregate means including a bathroom in that particular housing unit. That was an outstanding question that we hadn't yet had clarified. And all I can say is that in relationship to citizenship questions, length of time somebody goes into shelter beds, we have not been given any restrictions from HUD in that sense yet. So that might come, but we just haven't received that yet.
I mean, I guess to me, that's a concern, right? Because on this one, I understand the need, but I want to make sure we're doing it in a thoughtful way that doesn't get us over our skis. And my perspective may be biased, but I mean, I worked at the Pontiac Rescue Mission at one time in my life, and they had guidelines about how you check in, how long you can stay, et cetera. And if that can be done in a small operation in the city of Pontiac, I mean, this is a pretty big operation that you're talking a lot of people potentially. So I'm going to ask to take that one off the total vote agenda.
Item J.
Item I.
If it helps, I can give you some experiential information that I have from Hope. I know interacting with them is that the vast majority of the residents experience homelessness short-term. And they have a very low they call it recidivism rate compared to the statewide average. Because they do follow those philosophies that you just kind of laid out, in that don't help them to be here long term, but do what you can to transition them out as soon as possible. I know Hope, Lighthouse, who helps families, as well as Haven, they all serve those various philosophies and goals they strive for.
And don't get me wrong, like I understand the need and the problem. Here's what I'm trying to balance: the ability to help fellow citizens and get them back on their feet with a open invitation to anybody that's interested to come to Oakland County and receive great services for an unspecified period of time, regardless if you're a resident of Oakland County, United States, or anything else. That's not on you, I get it, like you're waiting for rules to come out, but I'm not comfortable voting on it as a yes until I understand what those guidelines are. Otherwise, to me, we're opening up the county for something that, could be Pandora's box. It may not be, but it could be. So that's I. Can I continue, Madam Chair? So item J, the rental house acceptance, I'm just trying to understand, like, this particular program. So when you read the documentation, it talks about that it actually was the task force, right? It's allowance for, where did I read that?
The Alliance for Housing is the fiduciary.
Mm-hmm.
Formerly the Oakland County Task
Yeah, so
Force
this
on
started,
Homelessness.
this started out as the Oakland County Task Force on Homeless Affordable Housing, and now it's become the Continuum, or the Alliance for Housing of Oakland County. So I don't know if those were two separate entities that become one, or if it's a new one. So that's one question. And the other question is, I don't remember, when did this program start? Was it a few years ago, or?
Yeah, so the Alliance for Housing is a nonprofit 501c3. A long time ago, Continuum of Cares did not exist. That is an entity that HUD, that is a broad generic entity that HUD established to act as a coordinator of all the various nonprofits that might serve people experiencing homelessness, and to help push forward conversations around increasing the availability of affordable housing. When that task force, and we're talking decades ago, was originally established, it was something that was local to Oakland County here. And then when HUD came out with these entities, that particular task force morphed and turned into Alliance for Housing. So that particular task force no longer exists, is no longer a thing, hasn't been for a couple of decades. And Alliance for Housing has been that nonprofit coordinating all the other nonprofits to, on their behalf, apply to other federal funding for any number of services, et cetera. To answer your question for the CDBG CV funding, that funding was accepted in a couple different rounds. It was first accepted in July-ish of 2020, and then the second round, I believe, was accepted in May of 2021. And we did our best during those very trying pandemic times to get the money and the program stood up and administered as quickly as possible. And we did a lot of that work in-house. And as a result, we had to put on pause some of our other regular day-to-day work to attend to that greater urgency and priority. And so now what we are wanting to do is to partner with Alliance for Housing that has experience in administering that on our behalf so we can continue to stay up on our regular work, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavell?
About the eviction prevention, I just wanted to say that that people that have been facing eviction, like those 17,000 households that were mentioned in just Oakland County, right? And this is like Shane saying, the goal is preventing people from experiencing homelessness. That the housing is just one of the many bills that a lot of folks can't afford. So I think in the future we should be cognizant of the fact that there are 30% of all residents in Oakland County cannot afford a $400 emergency. So then their life can spin out. Part of that is a housing cost, utilities going up, gas being high, right? Chicken or milk costing more. But that $400 emergency is something we should be mindful of going forward. And there's a great step in making sure that people don't become homeless because of that. Like again, those 1,000 folks in Pontiac, Southfield, and Oak Park that had that happen to them just last month.
Commissioner Ginzel?
Yeah, so just back on this last one, just to make sure I'm crystal clear, what this is really doing is saying we're going to utilize the Housing Alliance as our agent per se to delegate the community block group grant dollars that we receive, this 1.5 million, to distribute them out to entities like faith-based programs and others to help with the rental housing assistance. That's what this is saying.
I'll correct a part of that.
Okay,
I'll correct a part of that. So Community Housing Network and Lighthouse, they have what are housing stability staff that wonderfully are already there. And for the next year, they have that funding. Alliance for Housing would be coordinating those agencies to do those eligibility reviews, coordinate with us, get us all the documentation that we need to meet HUD audit, regulatory standards, et cetera, that very high administrative burden of all that coordination. And I'll say from direct firsthand experience, trying to do the first two rounds, it is substantial. And so they would be working with those two particular entities specifically to receive those applications, review income eligibility criteria along with everything else, HUD mandates that they have to meet. And then they would work through those agencies to help get those particular clients current to their to the rental needs. And I do also want to highlight that in the past we assisted with mortgages and those back payments. However, currently now, happily, MSHDA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, is running the MyHAV program, the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, which is currently ongoing and has a lot of funding available, and frankly has a broader scope of a range of income eligibility that Oakland County homeowners are eligible to receive. And that is, as far as I know, going to be ongoing for some time. And so that's why this time we've decided to just focus on rental assistance, because the SERA program has ended and there's currently not really anything available to assist those particular residents of Oakland County who might be in that situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
I just wanted to go on record and support these agencies, just so you know, Genjo, I've worked hand in hand with Lighthouse, with individuals, calling, middlemanning, making sure they either pay a back rent or place these people in these hotels because the housing shortage is here. So I physically worked with them, and I hope that we will all vote to, support the need because it's there. Right now, with our courthouse, just to give you some background, our courthouse is like 6 months, 6 months behind in evictions. That whole process. So if you know, I know, and it's a lot coming. Once they catch up with that, we may have a lot of displaced people soon. And it is a need. I'm getting calls all the time. And when Sarah did drop, that program shut down. I know their office was getting calls, and I just know from people in my history in the city of being able to help people in this space, it was a lot. So I'm just giving you all I'm right in the trenches as your colleague dealing with these individuals. So I just hope that you all will support it. And if not, I understand. We all colleagues here. But I do just want to give y'all that background information because I am in the trenches with them now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Coombs?
Yeah. I know you've indicated that the federal government hasn't given you guidelines. Do you have any departmental guidelines for this program?
For home ARP allocation plan funding?
Yes.
So when the HUD home ARP allocation plan is approved by HUD, and after the funding is fully accepted, we would put forth a request for proposal. If it was required, we could put some limitations on the use of those funds. If they didn't go against any other federal laws or rules or stipulations within that particular acceptance of the funding agreement. That's always a balancing act. Now, what I will say about assisting persons experiencing homelessness who might go into these non-congregate shelters, a part of that home ARP funding that we're accepting is for supportive services. And those supportive services are a broad list. The basic plan would be to provide to those shelter operators who have non-congregate shelter space, and that would include Haven as well. They would be, available to receive that funding. But it would be designed to transition and support those households from that non-congregate shelter. So for example, one option available for supportive services, job training. Another is perhaps assisting with a security deposit to help get them into a rental situation. So, yeah.
Can I ask, Madam Chair, can I ask this? With regard to this program, when would you expect it to be up and operating? I guess you're, making the application now for the rest of the monies?
Correct. We can't do anything until the full agreement is signed. So HUD accepts the home ARP allocation plan, we get an agreement and approval back from HUD, and we take it back and accept it through here. I don't anticipate that process being completed until spring. And the farther out you go, kind of like a hurricane, the cone of uncertainty increases as far as time range goes. But in an ideal world, we would have the capacity to have requests for proposals kind of put out shortly thereafter, into the spring and summer, have that be out there for an appropriate amount of time, 2, 3, 4 months, for shelter operators along with other funders to go in and support these particular efforts, coordinate those applications, the review of, and approval of such. That would probably happen in the fall, winter of next year, and then perhaps by next spring, we could have contracts in place so actual shovel and dirt work could begin.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes, I have a question about the rental assistance. what would the requirements be to qualify to obtain some assistance? Is it going to be patterned after the last one we had through, I think, the state of Michigan it was, I'm not sure. But what would the requirements be? Some kind of litmus test to make sure these people are qualified?
Yeah, there's a few different requirements, but I'll hit the big ones. The first most important one is the income eligibility criteria for the households. All the households have to be under 80% of the area median income. That varies depending upon household size, but that's approximately about $45,000 for annual income or less than for a particular household. We do have to take into consideration the sustainability of the particular situation that they're in. So if we were to calculate what income that particular household might have versus what their current monthly rent is, they can't be so rent burdened as to bring them current that a month later they're just going to fall into that same situation. That's another criteria that this particular funding source mandates that we have to take into consideration. And the third is that this particular source of funding, Community Development Block Grant CV funding, has to be used to prepare for, and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. That could be anything from, their hours were cut back, they lost their job as a result of the pandemic that is still ongoing in many regards. They had to care for a parent. The economic and inflation issues that kind of all stem from that. So they have to have some kind of reason for applying for that. Those are the three main ones that we look at when we're reviewing an application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginzel?
Yeah, so sorry, just one last thing. So on this particular one, item J, the rental assistance, and I appreciate you talking about Oakland Community Housing Network, Mark Craig, who I know pretty well. I mean, they're obligated to do the screening to put the individuals into their properties, but they're also putting individuals into their assets. So understanding that, plus comments from Commissioner Powell, I'm more comfortable with item J. I still want to take item I off, though.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you. Shane, where are we with seeing people that maybe received assistance during COVID with the SARA dollars? Do you see people doubling back already? Because you mentioned that this program here wants to make people whole. They don't want to see them come right back into the same situation. Are we seeing that from the SARA dollars to now?
I can't say that it has never occurred, but what I can say is those kinds of calls coming into us are infrequent at best. And specifically the CDBG CV dollars, if somebody has already received any kind of assistance from us through our past applications of this particular funding source for assistance, there is a requirement in this particular source of funding that says we can't assist those same households.
There is a guideline.
Yes, so.
Commissioner Bell?
Thanks. Shane, for the rental, for the 1.5 million, how many households do you anticipate that being able to serve?
We don't have a particular cap per application, but since it's to bring people current, given our past experience on our previous two rounds, that typically on average doesn't go more than $5,000 per household, and that included a mortgage assistance, which on average tended to be a little higher. And so I anticipate just doing back of the napkin rough math that we could assist through collaboration with Alliance for Housing anywhere between 250 and 350 households.
Okay. And just to say again, 1,000 people got evicted in just 3 towns. That doesn't include Madison Heights or Waterford last month. So.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Kuhn?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to I, you will be coming back to this board if you're granted the funding?
Do forgive me, I want to be explicit. I is the home ARP allocation submission approval?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, so once HUD approves how, our plan of how we want to use the money, they would then send us a agreement for us as an entity to sign, which can only be signed by both the chairperson and the executive, and we would have to come through the Board of Commissioners acceptance process at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what we have now is approval of 6 health items, 3 housing items. We're pulling I off the agenda and we'll vote on that next. So for the 9 items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and J. Prompt the vote, please. All right, those motions carry. Thank you. Thank you, Leanne, for waiting with us. Next time, we'll just call you if we need you.
So,
now, yes, we have item I. We have a motion by Commissioner Ginto for the Neighborhood and Housing Development Grant Application for 2021 Home Investment Partnership American Rescue Plan Program, or the Home ARP. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not moving the motion, I just wanted to take it off. If you're looking for a maker of the motion.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Cavell.
No way.
Support from Commissioner Powell.
yeah, it's gonna come
All
back.
right. So, any other comments? Prompt the vote, please.
I'm having
We have 8 yeas, 1 nay.
All right, motion carries. So, we have a number of items on the board, on our next board meeting that will be on the consent agenda, and 2 items on the regular agenda. We're going to move on to public comment for items, for anything you wish to discuss for public comment. Right before we hear from the public, I want to thank Commissioner Kuhn for his work on this committee. This may be your last committee meeting before you move on to another elected office.
Oh, yeah, congrats.
Congratulations.
Didn't he win? You won state rep, right? You won state rep, right?
Yes.
Oh, now you're going to Lansing, Cone.
Laura.
There we go.
Yeah,
I
Cone.
certainly hope that you, members of this board, contact me if there's a problem.
Oh, well, thank
Well, listen,
you.
that's not nice. That's what I hope you do.
Okay.
I mean, you have my contact information.
Yes, Cone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, public comment is open. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment?
Yeah, right?
Very nice job. Thank you, Jen.
Mr. Bays, I would appreciate it if you could actually wait. I actually contacted Mr. Bays last summer of 2021 when I discovered the agenda items and the May 13th, 2021 item for HUD didn't balance. The resolution approved way more than what was in the documentation. The documentation only had a February 25th HUD award letter. There was a omitted April 15th HUD award letter that clearly stated that only citizens were allowed to receive HUD money, which I received directly an email from the gentleman walking out of the room because he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. I actually attended a webinar the end of June, put on by Global Detroit. That's a World Economic Forum arm, if you aren't aware. They are busy socializing our area against our will, with our own money, in violation to a lot of federal laws, from what I understand. I don't understand how this is just being swept along. But they brag about all the great programs Oakland County has for renters that can't afford to live in Oakland County. Now, my first house was a HUD house. I bought it for back taxes and fixed it myself with my Reader's Digest Fix It Yourself book. That's what I could afford. And as I could sell that and get a better house, that's what I did. I'm on house number 4. But to have people that are coming to our country, and the first time I heard about the MSHDA program for affordable housing was at the webinar for the landlords who want to use HUD money to rent to the refugees. Yes, rent to the refugees with our federal money, so our citizens who might actually have a need are neglected. Now, so I have funded our country to support our citizens. I have no problem with supporting our citizens, but what I see happening is we are being taken for granted and abused by the globalist agenda that's been invited to the state of Michigan and Oakland County specifically. The fact that people are bragging about a Chinese battery plant is incomprehensible to me. That's not economic development. The fact that the $280 billion at the federal level for the CHIPS and Sciences Act, the only things I've heard about so far is the Chinese battery plant and the Stellantis Samsung, 2 foreign ventures that bragged about building a plant in Kokomo, Indiana. And by the way, I only saw that in Italian, not in English so far. That was in May. Now, when exactly did Congress approve that $280 billion? This is not okay. And they're working against our citizens with our own tax dollars, and it's not even like we have the money. The deficit is accelerating. The interest rate payments on that deficit keeps accelerating. This is all a squeeze play, and the citizens are the ones getting squeezed. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else from the public wishing to comment? No. Public comment is closed.
You
There
know
is
that
no
we
other
caucus
business to
tomorrow.
come before this committee, so the meeting is adjourned at 12:58.
Woo!
Thank you.
Out of here.